Round table. Glad you could join us. Yep. Pass the mic. To the table. The state of the people. Killing fables. Yeah. What you came here to do. Pass the mic. Break you down like a crossbow from AI. Ooh. Right in your eye. Just Jeff. What's next? Mr. Board off you ripping pages out your text. Dude Steve. Like the movie, the murder shit.
Chop it up.
He shall kill me. Did it, G? Dude, please. The Bruce Lee. The fucking SE. Then there's OZ. You know, none man. New Oz.
Yeah, man, we're going down. That deep down.
Grab your drinks, your paper and pen. Class is down with session.
That deep
Let the
down.
lessons begin.
Yeah.
How's everybody going? Or how's everybody doing? I guess is a better how's it going. But welcome. Welcome to the show. Today we have Ben and myself, and we have a wonderful guest. Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit about our guest today?
Well, our guest today is Richard MADSEN. He's been going around, he's been having conversations over at least the past year, describing his own take on Christian theology, I suppose. And so we're going to get into a lot of his beliefs tonight. And he's going to be a guest on the Atheist Roundtable in the hot seat, as it were.
Yeah. So before we get cracking, let's talk about the website.
I love
see that coming.
I love tacoing about the website.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the website here. We have, of course, all of our links on tart.live. So that's TART.live. And here you can see our upcoming schedule, which, of course, we have had a packed weekend. We had GeoSam on last night, which was a great show. And here we are tonight with Richard. Coming up next week, tomorrow, we have Sunny Secular, followed by Murdershed Steve being on the Empathetic Atheist show. And then we have back to our TART show with Christian Watkins on the 3rd. Then we have quite a few weeks. Wow, Austin, please, come on. You got to get these things in the right order. What's going on? So as you can see, we have a lot of stuff coming up in the next few weeks. So let's go back a page and look at our link tree. So if you go to the TART link tree, which is linktr.ee/TART, you're going to be able to see our link to the Facebook page, the website we were just on, the YouTube, the Patreon, the Discord, which, by the way, we have our Discord right here. Quite a bit of activity in the last few days on the Discord. We're just about to hit 800 users. So I really appreciate those that have shared their voice on the Discord and given us a lot of feedback. It's been a long journey to get to where we're at as far as the server goes. So I appreciate that. We're at like 790 something members, somewhere around there. Back onto the TART website, you can shop TART as well. So there's t-shirts, there's masks, there's the limited edition Mudaz t-shirt. Those are the things that you need to know right now, unless I forgot something, Ben. Is there anything I forgot?
Everything looks amazing. By the way, the graphics, I mean, it's just a pretty website to look at. The shirts look amazing. They've got that circular reasoning on there, the logos on there. So if you want to support TART, if you enjoy what we do, you go on to that link tree, you find the Patreon, you support us with your money. There's not much a person can do. And I've put this forward. I said, there are so many problems you can solve with enough money. And the challenge that I always put out there is just name a problem that you couldn't solve with enough money, or at least problems that aren't easier to solve with enough money. So there's a lot there if you check out that website.
It's true. And you can get cool merch.
And cool merch.
Yeah. So we've gone through the announcements here. Why don't we go ahead and get our guest in here?
Yeah, let's get Richard MADSEN. Big warm welcome.
Welcome.
Peace and respect, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, always.
Thanks for being on. You know, I didn't ask before. How do you prefer to be addressed? Do you like is Richard fine, or do you like?
I like Esquire. I'm just kidding. No, Richard or Rich or whatever. I don't care really.
Okay.
You know, there was a funny note about that. Just a quick funny story is there was colleges can be very progressive when it comes to things. And sometimes they can go a little too far. And so they had a thing at a major university that required professors to address students by their preferred, however they wanted to be. And so one of the students wanted to be addressed as your Lord and Master, and his name. And because of the school's policy, you gotta address him how he wants to be addressed.
Yeah, that's a little bit too far.
Yeah.
Hey, about your upcoming shows, I got to say, if anyone in your listening audience is unfamiliar with Christian Watkins, he's simply brilliant. Be sure to make that show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that one, let's see, that was...
Which day is that, Jeff?
I think it was the 4th or the 3rd.
It is the 3rd. He's right. It is on... Yeah, that's next week.
Or this weekend. Yeah, next weekend.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That'll be cool.
And I know I may have a couple visitors today. I did a live stream through TikTok earlier today, and I may have a few new people viewing in the chat. So make sure that you guys leave a comment there if you're here.
Oh, and speaking of people that I would recommend, if you're a real junkie and you just can't get enough of YouTube, check out, if you don't know them, Skylar Fiction, The Raging Atheist, and Digital Hammurabi for education about the Bible. If you really want to know how to attack it, check out their channel.
Nice. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of our viewers would probably really enjoy those channels. I know I got to watch your conversation with Skylar earlier this week, so highly recommended. Absolutely.
It's so funny to me that Christians will come on to his show and be very, very unreasonable and then claim that he is unreasonable. He will defend himself.
Yeah,
but
as you should.
But I find that I have great conversations with a lot of people who completely disagree with my theism.
Yeah, for sure.
And while we're still at the top of the show, don't forget, if you're viewing this and you enjoy our content, and if you haven't yet, go ahead and like this video, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. That way you'll never miss a live show again.
Amen. Or is that inappropriate?
I don't know. Right.
Well, Ben, why don't I let you go and take a little bit of a epistemological conversation, and I'll stick out of the way and come back in a little later, and then after that, we'll also have Murder Shed Steve with some Q&A.
All right. Well, thanks, Jeff, for helping intro, and So, Richard, I'm ready to dive right in if you are.
Let's go, man.
All right. The first thing I like to do is just try to identify what exactly you believe. If it could be, we don't have to have like a huge, description, but if we could have one or two things that maybe we can investigate the reasons why you believe it.
Sure. I got a little elevator pitch.
Okay.
Okay. So I believe that what happened somewhere in the universe was an evolutionary process of some kind, maybe not the one we subscribe most value to now, but some kind of evolutionary process that resulted in an intelligence that increased its technological understanding over time and started to manipulate DNA in such a way to make its own life easier, perhaps starting with simple plants and making them a bit gentler and the fruit a bit better. But that kept going and that kept going until they got to where they made a slave class of animals. Now, these animals were apparently intelligent enough to take verbal instruction and follow even some pretty complex verbal instructions compared to the rest of the animals that they had created. So they were doing improvements on a regular basis to this slave class, and call it slave class 5.0. They made them all males so that they couldn't reproduce. And that's kind of a safety feature when you start something new. You don't want it to just run wild. So they had the first samplings got to be about 3 years old. And they said, okay, this one is not viable as a slave. We're just going to wipe out the whole batch. However, a mother or gestational mother, not DNA mother. A gestational mother did something very, very stupid with one of them. She took a carrying basket and lined it with pitch and sent it down the river. And
Is it Moses?
well, yes, of course.
Okay.
She sent it down the river. Well, it's older than the story of Moses, actually.
Okay.
But, it's older than the Bible. So she sent it down the river, and the king of the land, the king of the entire place, he was not asked if his daughter could keep it. She simply kept it. But once the child had some kind of a favoritism toward this novelty or pet, the pharaoh apparently decided, the king of the land decided to let her keep it, which was probably not wise, actually. So it grows up and gets put in charge of the entire slave class and most of the master class. So the leadership of the master class had some unusual amount of respect for this particular slave, which would explain why they wiped out all the rest of the batch. It was simply too smart or too powerful or too intuitive or something. And what he noted most about this particular slave was it could blush. That is, it had emotions. It could turn red in the face, which is why he called it Adam. Which is what Adam actually means. So eventually it vied for its own, and through a pretty good fight, found its own freedom and broke away, borrowing from its neighbors. Then, and ever since then, it has been going around terraforming planets with materials borrowed from that master class, which explains why there is an obvious and undeniable relationship between us and the rest of the animals.
Okay. So I guess is the basis of the things that you believe. So somewhere in the universe, there was an evolutionary process. They had slave classes, slave 5.0, all males. There's a gestational mother. We discovered that the slave has emotions. And then the last point I think I struggled to follow along with was animals. Can you relate the animals to us again? I just want to make sure that I'm...
Well, in the story of Moses, as he leaves with some percentage of his people or all of his people, which would really piss the Pharaoh off, by the way. Mm-hmm. They borrow from their neighbors. That is, they take things that don't belong to them. And in the case of what we see on this earth, it would be plants and animals, things you see here.
Okay. Let me ask real quick. So we're on the atheist roundtable. Is there a God within this view that you have?
I believe that ancient religions, which assign value to a living progenitor God, which is most of the standard ones that you know of, not all of them, but most of them, that they are. I'm going to need you to repeat the question. Oddly enough, would you say that again?
That's okay. Is there a God figure, or is there any entity that you would consider to be God within this view? That's okay.
So what I see them describing is a set of ideals exercised by living beings. That is, Adam, at the very beginning of Adam, realized there was the possibility of perfection for his kind of animal. And it would be a set of guidelines, a set of ideals. And he immediately started exercising those ideals. And that just never ended. And those would be the seven spirits of God and all the intricacies of what God entails.
So the ideals of animals would entail the seven spirits of. I'm sorry, I have a little whiteboard that I use to help me out.
Quite all right. I can speak slower.
No, that's okay. The seven spirits of like animals, or
no, the seven spirits of God from the Bible are a description of a perfect set of ideals for what the human animal is. That is, we decide what we are decides what it is. It's not arbitrary.
So we get to decide the ideals. Okay.
No, we don't get to decide with partial information and limited knowledge. That it's already preset by our ancestors who know the full truth of what we are.
So it's preset by the ancestors who have the real truth of what we are.
Well, I would say the full truth of the universe and knowledge we don't have. They can make better decisions than we're able to make presently.
So our ancestors were better to make better decisions than we are
No,
now.
that's not exactly right. I
Sorry.
say us perfected would have the same understanding. We would agree.
I guess I'm struggling to find like a specific. Is there a God claim within this, or are you saying that what religions say about God is that what religions call God is actually descended from our ancestors?
Let me see how I can help you with.
follow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I think there's an assumption being made here, which is easily made because I say I'm a theist and I am a Christian. Okay. So it's perfectly justifiable that you should make such an assumption. It's just not necessarily accurate, and I think it's causing you conflict. Okay. Which is through no fault of your own. It's a reasonable assumption. When Christians that you've known of probably say the word God, they attach to that ideas like the quad omnis and being supernatural outside of space and time. I don't see that described actually anywhere in any religion, but what I do see described is a first human being who was given a mate able to reproduce with, and that reproducing as they left in what was apparently high technology, I would loosely say a spaceship. They would have left in a spaceship to leave the area that was Satan's or the Pharaoh, whichever you want to call him. When they left that area, they had high technology already, and they started a growing of their own kind through a very simple, understandable reproductive kind of methodology. Literal sex.
Would you say that your claim is actually is there a like a classic understanding? So you say that you are a theist. Okay. How would you define then the type of God belief that you have? And maybe I'm still making that assumption that you were saying. Could you explain that? Because I think maybe our listeners may be making the same assumptions that I am. Could you explain what you mean by like if you are a theist and you have a God belief?
Yes.
What is that God? And I'd like to kind of zero in maybe on that specific idea.
Just like you have a set of ideals that you value and you exercise them in life. Human beings, ancient human beings who have never lived on this planet at all, have a set of ideals. Now, because they're apparently much, much smarter than we are at our present state, although we will be eventually as smart as they are. But they have a better understanding, or maybe even a perfect understanding of what the universe actually is when we're just starting to gain some of that knowledge. And because of their better understanding of what the human animal is and what the universe is, they have a set of ideals that they value. That set of ideals is quote unquote God.
Okay, so a set of ideals from our ancient, from our ancestors who did not live on Earth, that is what you would define as God.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. I have such a more clear understanding of what you mean by that word. So thank you for going through that. Okay, and then the next thing that I like to do is I just like to ask, how did you conclude? And I guess out of the claims that you've made, it seems like the root is that there are. If God is the ideals of ancient human beings who may not have lived on Earth, how did you conclude, I guess, first of all, that human beings have lived anywhere than Earth? How did you get to that conclusion? What reasons do you have for that?
I would call it a necessary extrapolation from the stories. That is, the stories indicate it, but don't directly say it.
So necessary extrapolation. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to, because this is very new for me. These are all very different. So I'm gonna be very, very slow, and I'm gonna try to not necessarily nitpick, but try to understand what you're saying.
Well, it's much better than straw manning, so I'm okay.
I appreciate it. I do. I take pride in my ability to steel man anybody's position. I think that's very important. Wow. So it's a necessary extrapolation from
all of the stories from really all over the planet that I find. And I can't say that I've surveyed all of them, but all of them that I've surveyed, it's a necessary extrapolation from those stories that there was a beginning of whom we would call God, or what we would call God.
Okay, so it's a necessary extrapolation from all the surveyed writings or religions that you've studied.
Now, I don't believe that is true based on the Bible, because that, or from any religion, because that would be circular. Okay. However, there are things that I have found provable in reality that people of those days, of those years, could not have known, and are falsifiable and held true, which is why I believe them. Now, there's probably a good 20-25% that is nothing but prophecy. And of course, I can't prove prophecy. It hasn't happened. There's absolutely zero evidence for it. However, because I see so much that is true, I'm willing to accept the rest.
You know, I'm thinking as you're giving some more explanation there, I was just caught myself wondering, how confident are you that ancient human beings lived anywhere other than Earth?
Now my confidence in something does not speak to the veracity of the claim itself, only how I feel about it.
So your confidence is based on how you feel about it? And I want to understand. Okay, so you feel...
No, confidence has to do with feelings. It's confide, to have faith in.
Okay.
So I have faith in it because of my experience. Now, some of my experience is provably true, which is another topic. It has nothing to do with how I feel about it. Okay. How I feel about it is extremely confident. I would say, if it were useful, 100%. But in realistic terms, I should say 99%.
99%. Okay. And then, so I asked for the reasons why you felt confident. And I guess the specific claim that I'd like to address here at this outset, because it seems to be at the root of the rest of the understanding that you've given, is that ancient, that God is the ideals of ancient human beings which may not have lived on Earth. Or
I'm
which
saying did not live on. I'm saying did not
live on Earth.
You may say it however you like.
Okay, thank you. So in your confidence that ancient human beings lived off of Earth is a necessary extrapolation from all of the surveyed writings. Are there any other reasons which help get you to that extremely confident level, other than the writings that we've looked at?
Well, I have nothing else to go by, you understand.
Okay.
I mean, I could make the argument that you couldn't tell the difference between an evolutionary process naturalistically happening on this planet and planned digestibility. I could make that argument, but that's not addressing the topic. You see, that's arguing with some other topic. I don't have anything to suggest other than information we can't have had and did not have. Even some very, very recent information, very much solidified by modern science, recalled to us in ancient stories that someone besides us wrote the story. And if someone besides us wrote the story, then by definition, it wasn't us, thereby they didn't live here.
So let me ask real quick, if I could demonstrate to your satisfaction that abiogenesis occurred, I'm not saying if I could. If I could, would that lower your confidence that ancient human beings lived on other planets?
No, it would confuse me as to why Satan used abiogenesis to start the repeat of the process that happened naturalistically. I would have to pray about why he would, because that makes no sense. So you would wonder. So your response to finding out, and I'm not saying that this is the case, your response to finding out that humans have evolved on Earth. That's not what you said.
Okay. Okay. Let me try again then, or let me reword, and maybe there's a misunderstanding. If I could demonstrate to your satisfaction, and if I could, that abiogenesis occurred on Earth, and humans evolved through the theory of natural selection that we understand, or in recent history for most. Do you accept like the certain evolutionary theories, at least recently, maybe microevolution, things like that? There's no such thing as microevolution in the evolutionary model. Okay, that's a Christian term that doesn't actually exist. And I agree with you there. I'm just trying to understand your position there.
I never really answered to the spirit of your question, though.
Sure.
No,
yeah.
I don't accept that a naturalistic evolutionary process happened on this planet the way as described, and there's I think good reason to not accept it.
Okay. What is that? And is that good reason?
But that's not really the spirit of your question either. Really, you're asking me if I had definitive proof that I'm wrong, would I accept definitive proof I'm wrong? Well, I was a 42-year-old anti-theist who was very sure of their position.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I can be corrected.
Okay. So would your confidence then go from extremely confident to not very confident that humans existed anywhere from Earth based on
my conversion at a 42-year-old anti-theist, my conversion took 20 minutes. I'm very willing to accept new information and correction.
Okay. Now, what was the information then that, so you mentioned that it was a necessary extrapolation from all the surveyed writings that you've read or the reading that you've done, that human beings evolved on a different planet.
No, it's not what I said.
Okay.
What I said was an evolutionary process happened, resulting in someone able to genetically manipulate animals, and human beings are the result of that manipulation.
Did that occur on Earth, or was that on a different planet?
It would have been not here.
Okay. How did you?
I don't find any name for the place. I'm sorry.
That's okay. How did you determine that it didn't happen here?
Well, because first of all, as I said, I trust the stories, which are some 80% provable, and the part that is not provable, I accept because I have so much evidence that all of it is true. Of course, I cannot prove the future and a few other things like what you're asking me right now. I can't definitively prove that. We obviously see evidence of an evolutionary process. That is obvious to me. I don't deny that in any way. However, if fossilization is random, we should find random spacing between fossils. We do not. We find very metered and distant and almost predictable distances between samples of a broad spectrum. You see, random doesn't happen in a series of between 0 or say 1 and 100. Random doesn't happen 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. That's not random. Random happens 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 14, 26. That's random. But that's not what we find anywhere.
Okay. I heard you say that you trust the stories.
Yes.
How did you what about the stories do you find, I guess, trustworthy enough to extrapolate that human beings went through an evolutionary process outside of the Earth? And I'm sorry if I'm misrepresenting. Please correct me.
What I said was that an intelligent animal went through an evolutionary process resulted in an intelligent animal sophisticated enough to start manipulating DNA. That's what I said.
Okay.
Okay.
And so there was a sophisticated, and I'm going to keep repeating because I want to make sure I understand.
Yes, sir.
There was a sophisticated enough animal outside of the Earth which manipulated DNA. Were humans created on that outside planet then?
Yes.
Or was
that same locale as those intelligent beings lived?
And was that Homo sapiens what we would recognize as Homo sapiens?
Were they the creators?
Not the creators. What they created. What they created. Okay, what you would call human beings.
In the story that I told, using Slave Class 5.0 as an example, Slave Class 5.0 would be Homo sapien sapien.
Okay, and I'm trying to remember, and
not
I'm sorry
that there were additions before that, and we see samples of those additions before that in the fossil record here.
Oh, okay. So are you saying that there were earlier forms of?
Yes,
like
Slave Class 4.5 and 4 and 3.5 and 3.
Would that be the explanation then for like Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Australopithecus? Okay.
I mean, after all, if you cared for your captains, you wouldn't send them in to be cannon fodder in a harsh environment. But to teach the bear and the lion a lesson, something they could fear, and yet you didn't really lose anything, you might send in some lower class soldiers.
Soldiers, are you describing like a metaphorical war, or was there like a real war?
Well, it depends on your point of view. If you're Homo Africanus, it was a serious war between you and the wild beasts. Now, from my perspective, looking back at that, there's some kind of a pre-proto-human, non-human kind. I don't really feel sorry for them. But I'm sure for them, it was a real war between them and whatever was trying to eat them.
Okay. Okay. And I know that we've kind of gotten deeper, and I appreciate that you're clarifying me at every step of the way, because that is something I strive to do. I really do want to truly understand. So when I repeat something back and it is inaccurate, I really appreciate that you do that. So don't take that as
well, please don't take me clarifying it as being insulted by you or thinking that you're trying to be unfair. I don't.
Sure. Thank you. And okay, so we have trust that the stories then, and I feel like I better understand the idea that there were different classes of humans, and that would explain the fossil record in terms of we have different hominids, correct? So the different slave classes would explain the different hominids. And then we have a gestational mother, which led to Moses, which would explain the story of Moses and the early biblical writings, correct? Okay.
Of course, Moses is not the only story that our first ancestor calls himself. He calls himself by other names throughout that religion and other names in other religions as well. So that's just one of them.
So there would be other religious writings that allude to the same character or to the same person.
Almost exactly, yes.
Almost exactly. Awesome. Hey, I see we got somebody new on the screen. What's up, Jeff?
What's going on?
Hey.
Just checking in.
Thanks, man. How are you?
I'm trying to keep up.
Yeah, we're
but I do have, if I can interrupt your line of questioning for a moment.
Absolutely.
I just kind of want, like, I want to take Richard's brain and shove something into it and see what comes out the other end and see your thoughts on a subject matter. Because I know we were talking a little bit about humans and genetics and that kind of stuff, but what is your opinion when it comes to how our species is going to advance to that next 0.0? Like,
I have a reasonable answer for that.
Like, do you think that genetic modification, like, you know, how we have figured out DNA modification should be used to breed better humans?
Okay. All right. So the United Nations is already pouring sometimes as much as $45 million a year into singular laboratories around the world in an effort to remove what, and I think this term is wrong because it seems I looked it up a second time and they changed the terminology on me, but I'm going to call it by the old terminology. A microRNA blocker. They mean to remove the microRNA blocker that causes some of our genetics to not code. At first, we called those sections junk DNA. But now we're saying it's not junk DNA. It doesn't show up in the fossil record in homology and is potential DNA. I think what is promised when the saying goes for the Christians, the saying goes, the promises of the kingdom of God are within you. I believe that's actually true, that the unrealized genetic potential within us all released would change us in a not a fundamental way, but maybe perhaps in brain efficiency and ability to heal, especially telomeres destruction and aging. After all, there are some 30-odd eternal and not immortal eternal animals already on the planet that do that quite perfectly. It's entirely possible, or at least the United Nations thinks, that it's entirely possible by 2026 to find the protein series that would drop the microRNA blocker off the genetic material, making human beings also eternal beings.
And I've seen some ability of some scientists to crack the DNA, let it rebuild itself, but inject the answer, you know, like the correct side, so it'll duplicate based off of that piece. So do you think that we could use that? Let's say we find this is the genetic marker for, intelligence, we'll say.
Mhm.
Do you think that it is ethical, or think that it is correct that we maybe go in and say, well, we're just going to modify humans in the future, the next, next ones to come out, and we're just going to make sure that we max that out. Like, let's just go ahead and make sure that every human that comes out is smarter. Let's get rid of diseases that can be removed from genetic. Like, do you think that's something we should do?
It's definitely within our reach. It's definitely within our reach to do that. I don't concern myself with the morality or ethics of doing that, because it's a promise of God. You don't get to do it.
So you said that there was a promise of God. If I remember correctly, were you saying that God is the ideals of ancient human beings?
Yeah, it's a set of ideals.
Okay, so in what way can ideals, like a set of ideals, make a promise to humans?
I love the little expressions in the Bible like that. I like to use them just to tease people's brains. Yeah,
Okay.
Obviously a set of ideals doesn't make decisions, but people practicing those sets of ideals can make decisions.
So are those people still living today? The people who set forth those ideals, or who give us the promises that you're talking about?
Yes, although it's not popular except for in about 2 different Christian sects, and LDS would be told they're not Christians, but that's simply not accurate, and is a Scotsman. But yeah, if you read it strictly and took it seriously, you'd have to admit the angels in heaven, and in fact, all of our ancestry that did not go to quote unquote hell are still alive today.
And what is alive about them?
Flesh. They have
Okay.
flesh, just like you.
And where are they?
Without of telescope range,
So they're outside of telescope range.
or
Do you
moving
think
too quick, or
do you
too
think-
dull in color, or all of the above.
Do you think we will ever get telescopes good enough to get into that range?
I think if we had fast enough, big enough tracking, self-tracking, finding, like if we started tracking like gravitational anomalies
Sure.
at great distances, I think it's entirely possible to see heaven literally.
Okay. Same thing with hell.
Yeah, well, actually, yes.
Okay.
That those who made the slaves, quite on purpose, and one slave was too darn bright and rebelled and won its freedom, is lends toward the idea of a at least Satan would think he would have a righteous claim to us.
Sure.
That is, not respecting autonomy.
I'm still struggling to understand the connection between the literature that you've read, which I understand that you're very, very well read, and I respect that about you, because that's something that I hope over the next few years I gain as much reading experience, as much time as you have. I'm still struggling to understand the connection between the writings that religions have made, or that humans have documented, and the confidence level that you have in the belief that there are that ancient human beings, or that other beings exist outside of Earth, which are capable of modifying DNA, creating different slave classes, which explain the evolution of humans, or the purported evolution of humans. What's the connection between the writings that you've been able to consume and that claim?
Well, I was hoping you'd come back to this, because as I said, it's not the necessary extrapolations that convince me the story is true, but the things that are provable. So I would start very small. Do you think that it is believable of a human being that if a man worked hard enough, he could accomplish going to sleep even if he was hungry? Do you think that's true?
I think people go to sleep hungry.
Okay, so you just verified in your own experience there is at least one line from the Bible that is objectively true to your experience.
I think there's a lot that's true within the Bible. It talks about Galilee. It talks about Bethlehem, all real places that we've set forward. Proverbs has a lot of truisms about the way that humans behave.
Okay, but
There's a
there's
lot of
nothing
philosophy
there that a
involved.
human being couldn't write.
There's nothing there that a human being couldn't write.
Everything that is there, a human being could have written with their own experience, if they're wise, a fairly wise person.
I guess human beings had language at the time that the Bible was written in order to express those ideas. I think.
Okay.
Sure.
So they could have authored it, is what you
human
would say.
beings could have authored it.
Okay. So
yes.
What about things they could not have authored?
I would be interested in that claim if I have not heard that before.
Okay. In 2013, or in 2012, I started reading the Bible, but in 2013, I got to the story of Jericho.
Okay.
And in the story of Jericho is a recollection. It's done as a recollection. It's not a recollection. It's prophetic, but it's done as a recollection, where the Ark of the Covenant is in the house of Dagon.
The Ark. I'm sorry. So the Ark of the Covenant
is in the house of Dagon.
Who is Dagon? I may not be as familiar as
we're going to. We're totally going to. I'm not going to require. I'm just going to require logic. I'm not going to require all things.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
I do not know all things.
By the way, if you did know all things and you made the claim there was no God, you'd be ridiculous because you'd be God. Just
That's
so
right.
you know.
Well, perhaps.
Perhaps. Okay. If you knew all things, I'd have a lot of respect for you. I'll put it that way.
There'd be a lot of good questions to follow that. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I'd have a bunch of questions. Yeah. In fact, I do. Okay. So it turns out that Dagon is actually a constellation. Now, it became later Poseidon and most recently Draco. It's that lazy W ending in a triangle that wraps partially around Polaris, the North Star. Okay. So Draco the dragon.
So hold on, I'm a little bit lost because we talked about how Jericho. What's the connection between Jericho and Dagon again?
It's part of the story of Jericho.
So there's something residing in Dagon, which is in the stars.
Okay, so you probably need me to at least closely quote the text. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay,
this is not. I mean, like within a small amount of time. Okay.
This I'm doing from memory. I'm not going to quote months and months of it, just 3 paragraphs.
That's fair.
Okay. Okay. Now, this is from memory from 2013. I have not read it since. And I only read it once. Okay. And when the Ark of the Covenant was in the house of Dagon, Dagon fell off of his resting place. And the people came and put Dagon back on his resting place. And the next morning they came again to the house of Dagon. And Dagon had again fallen off of his resting place. But this time he lost his head and hands on the threshold. Stop.
Okay.
Okay. That's all the prophecy right there. But there's a lot of information right there.
Sure. And is your claim then that we're talking about actually within space? Within the constellation of Dagon, which was
the constellation itself. Yes.
Okay. How did you conclude from that passage that it's talking about a literal place within the constellation?
I didn't.
Okay.
I'm just trying to give you a short story that's easy to digest.
Okay. Thank you.
The story that revealed the context that I used to read these stories is a much longer story you might not have time for right now.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
I guess, so what is the Ark of the Covenant then? So which resides?
It means heaven. Ark meaning transportation device or distribution device. Covenant meaning the promise between God and man. The Ark of the Covenant is the thing that completes the contract between God and man and or heaven.
Okay. Do you not think so? The Ark of the Covenant to you is not a physical box.
I don't care what they did.
Okay.
I don't give half a crap about what statues they made or whatever.
Sure. But you wouldn't say that the Ark of the Covenant that they describe, as the tabernacle and that kind of stuff, that wasn't like what you're talking about.
What's described in those verses is a side view of chapter 4 of the book of Revelation, the throne room of heaven. It's just two different views. One's like an overhead view or under view, depending. And the other one's a side view. It's the same description.
Sure.
Okay.
Is that passage part of what necessitates? So I guess like I keep trying to bring it back.
Point.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to my point.
Thank you. And I stopped. Yeah, I stopped you. Okay, continue.
I'd be more than happy to finish it, and maybe it'll make better sense. Maybe it'll be worse. We'll find out.
Okay, we'll find out.
One way to find out.
Yeah, it could be worse. Okay. So the Ark of the Covenant was in the house of Dagon, and Dagon fell off of his resting place. Mm-hmm. That is, we used to consider these actual gods, the stars themselves in some societies, or planets in some societies. They considered to be gods, but then we figured out they're not. Mm-hmm. Okay. That is, he fell off of his resting place, his place of elevation, his high place. But then we discovered science, and the stars became important again, because what they do and how they create matter and all of these ideas. And in fact, as Neil deGrasse Tyson might say, buddy, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for stars. Stars are huge important. So the stars got put back on their elevated place in our minds. But the Ark of the Covenant being in the house of Dagon, a house is the limitations of a constellation. That's called its house. So the Ark of the Covenant in the house of Dagon means near to the constellation's limits. All right. And then there's an announcement that he falls off of his high resting place again. He loses his stature again and loses his head and hands. Those are three particular stars. They've always been the thing. No one's ever turned it around. So the tail's the head. Okay. So the head and hands of Dagon will be lost. They'll be cut off from us, from our view. So in 2013 and a half or so, I started looking for something that could block our view of those three particular stars. NASA found it in 2017. The name of the comet is C2017, the year it was found. K2, that's Kilo 2, Pan-STARRS, P-A-N-S-T-A-R-R-S. And you can see three-dimensional models of this. It's a little bit further away than Jupiter right now, and its outgassing or coma or tail is bigger than Jupiter in appearance, even though it's farther away. So this is a very large outgassing from a relatively small comet, which is why they say it's a record breaker and perhaps has never passed by a star before.
Okay.
So it will block our view of those three stars fulfilling the prophecy for a long enough time we can talk about it, not just a moment.
So let me see if I could demonstrate that was like a natural, or you're not claiming that it's not a natural phenomenon.
I don't believe that there's such thing as supernatural, although I do believe intelligences can act on reality.
Okay. So I'm trying to understand so because you read Jericho, the story of Dagon, and we've related that to constellations, and we fulfilled a prophecy. Hey, what's up, Jeff?
Yeah, there it is right there.
Yeah, there
How
it is.
close is it to the middle? Wow, it's already pretty close to the middle, isn't it?
Yeah, so here's what he's talking about, the triangle, the W with the closing. So yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Yeah,
okay.
There it is.
Well,
anyway, I
visual reference.
Thank you.
I didn't look up the comet 4 years before NASA found it and make the comet fit this description. I didn't do that. But I read the story and started looking for the comet.
There it is,
if I bought a decent telescope, I'd have been the guy who found it.
So I guess, how did you determine that, like, the name for that constellation directly refers to, so like, why isn't it not another grouping of stars?
Because it's called Dagon.
Who called it Dagon?
The people of the time called that constellation Dagon. They actually did.
And so they would have understood that to
be a set of stars that they thought possibly were gods, or they used it to name gods and tell stories about gods and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And is it because they were able to accurately predict something that would happen? And I'm not an astronomer. I'm not sure exactly how common these things are, but is it because they were able to, so I guess what's the connection between a star or set of stars or celestial bodies performing a certain way, being a certain way, and ancient human beings or an alien, I don't know if you would characterize them as an alien race, modifying human genetics? What's the connection there between those two beliefs?
Okay, I don't think Satan wrote the Bible. I think our ancestry did. So the manipulator of DNA didn't write this story. Okay. And those people understood that constellation and called it that. And those 3 stars have always been the head and hands of Dagon or Poseidon or Draco, depending on the year you're talking about. Okay. I don't think the people understood it. And I also don't think that the people authored it, because they wouldn't even have been able to. And if you want to talk about percentages of likelihood of anything happening, I'd like to run the actual numbers and not just make any kind of a hollow assertion like this is definitely 100% the thing because I'm saying it's the thing. I'm not saying something like that. I actually understand math. Please. I actually understand math and chances and statistics a little bit better than that. Okay, so, but equally, I'd like to first ask you, what do you mean by prove?
I guess I didn't say prove. I guess I'm wondering what the connection is between an ancient people naming something Dagon, having a story about it, and the conclusion that ancient beings genetically modified.
If you could just tell me if you're using the scientific definition of the word proof or the colloquial usage of the word proof, so I didn't
use that word. I'm not asking.
Could we roll back the tape? No, you asked me how I could prove. That's what you actually said. I'd love to be able to prove anything. I can't.
Yeah, I hope I didn't say that. Let me rephrase. What is the connection then between the people and that? So like, maybe what I was asking was, how does the story demonstrate that ancient human beings or ancient beings genetically modified different slave classes leading to human beings? What's the connection there?
There's no connection there because you're talking about 2 different races of animal.
Okay.
There's no connection between Satan, the maker of human beings, and our ancestry, other than his scientists or himself as a scientist made them, and I don't know which one it is. There's no connection at all there. But I think the spirit of what you're asking me is, how do I know that ancient human beings on this earth did not author that story? And I cannot prove they didn't. However, if you look at the possible directions from point 0, it's not like A-axis, Z-axis, Y-axis, or whatever. There's many more directions than that. In fact, there's infinite directions from any point, but there's infinite points in space. So if I say there's a comet, fine. But if I say there's a comet on a certain trajectory that will block our specific view, which requires that we're at a specific place along our orbit around the sun, and it'll block it long enough for us to have conversations about it and be seeable to the naked eye. Well, that's actually quite a lot of definition. The numbers become impossible to handle if you try to actually calculate that.
So Ben,
yeah,
we gotta get Murder Shed Steve.
Oh yeah,
pretty soon.
The show continues. As much as I would love to learn more,
but I do have one question before we move forward, Richard. Sure. I'm going to give you a theoretical. So let's say I give you the ability to make a Hollywood movie. Okay, I'm talking big budget. You can have whatever actors you want. You can have whatever directors you want. You get a 90-minute movie.
I'll act. Let's go.
90 minutes. It's gonna go everywhere, around the world. What do you make What do you make your movie about, and who is your lead character?
I would settle for a play, first of all, with a mirror at a 45-degree angle over the entire stage, so that the actors doing David and Goliath and their hats being the planets, you could see how David and Goliath would perfectly work out in the planets, resulting in us being in a binary solar system. That would be what I would actually do. If it were a movie, oh my gosh, in 90 minutes, I could probably, what's the most important story? Heaven's Arrival. I would have Samuel L. Jackson kicking back in a chair, talking to Bruce Willis, going, is it just me? Or did this Earth take 3 seconds longer to stop shooting at us than the last one?
Are you going to have a Quentin Tarantino as your director?
Oh, wow. That'd be a dream come true, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I think we have Murder Shed ready to come in. Is he around?
Do we have somebody?
Is he busy?
Where is he?
I don't know.
Well, how's it going, everybody? How we doing today? Hey, actually, I've got a quick story. So the other day, I was actually coming home late, and we had some special guests over for dinner. But I came home late, and my wife was a little bit upset, and she gave me a cold shoulder. The other one had already been eaten. How's it going, everybody? Do we have Richard, Jeff, Ben, Oz? Maybe? Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
Is that Mark of Legend?
He has returned. How are you?
Wait. Oh,
What's
back
up, Mark?
from the dead.
Dude, I guess we gotta rename that phrase. Instead of cold turkey, you gotta call it cold shoulder now.
Yeah, I'm
gotta
quitting
quit
cold
shoulders.
shoulders. They're disgusting. I like dark meat and the shoulder meat. Anyway,
It was
so
great.
I have a question for Q&A because that's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
So Sunny Secular is wondering, Richard, what your definition of Satan is, and what does she look like?
Well, I would say that my best guess would be that some of what makes us what we are is genetic material from that kind of animal that develops through some naturalistic process. I could probably guess that we look somewhat similar, but I think the defining factor is not intelligence or physical appearance, but the ability of emotions.
And what would be the ability of Satan emotionally?
Approximately 0.
Okay. How's it going, Mark? I thought you were going to quit smoking, bud.
I'm getting there. I'm actually doing much better. But I wanted to light one up in the name of TART.
In honor?
For old
Oh.
time's sakes, you know.
Oh,
Mark and I had a really good discussion on one of his lives the other day.
We
Oh,
did.
yeah?
It
Yeah,
started
about toilet paper.
Yeah, about toilet paper, what I use.
Yeah.
Charmin. I double checked. It is Charmin.
Okay, cool.
Oh my God.
Yep.
double
Murder
check,
Shed,
double ply.
I've got kind of a quick question for you. I mean, perhaps
Sure.
you're just extremely intuitive. How did you know that was a spliff that you could say to him, I thought you quit smoking, bud?
Ah!
Murder Shed Steve has his ways.
That's right. Well, it looks a little bit like a split.
Looks like a cigarillo, but yeah.
That was
Yeah,
good,
not.
man. That was funny.
That was fantastic.
Loved it.
So I've got a question from GeoSam. Uh-oh.
Great friend of mine.
Yeah, GeoSam is we actually had him on last night. Go and check that episode, give it a like as well.
Yeah.
After this one, of course. Is there any significance to the concha in regards to what
Kachina.
your beliefs? Kachina? Contra? Up, down, left, right? A, B, A,
No,
B?
not contra.
Starts
Kachina.
what?
Yeah.
Kachina. Okay. Thank you.
A Kachina is a Zuni expression of a story from their religion. That is a costume that expresses a story. Is there any significances to the Kachina in regard to what I believe? Yes, there is. I believe chapter 4 of the book of Revelation, pictured here as looked up from underneath, like from the earth toward the sky, which is why you got some tree leaves in the corners, is if you reformed it and made it a human costume, it would be the Red Star Kachina. And Geo's being really exceptionally nice to me, trying to give me a freebie.
Yeah, I figured he might have been poking the bear a little bit on that one.
No, not
Oh,
exactly.
I mean, poking fun, right?
No, he was kind of giving me a freebie actually, because you guys didn't even bring that up. Wouldn't know what he was talking about. Yeah.
I might know
Fair
what.
enough.
Yeah, I didn't know what
It's
he was
like an
talking about.
inside. It's like an inside thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Since-
how am I going to bring it up if I can't even pronounce it, right?
That's what he's saying.
I couldn't even bring it up while it was spelled in front of me. Kat the Humanist has a question. What are the eternal animals and where did they come from?
Well, the eternal animals and where did they come from? There's a long laundry list, actually. I can't even recall all of them. Some of the more complicated one are the loggerhead turtle. There's a whale that does not die of old age. Lobsters wouldn't if they didn't get so big their shells while reforming collapsed and they become lunch. There's no such thing as a giant clam. There's no such thing as a giant octopus. There's no such thing as a giant squid. There's just really old ones. They're not separate species. It's just they've managed to survive, and those don't have growth limitations, as neither does a catfish, for that matter. And all these beings undisturbed with a good food source simply would not die of old age. Something has to aggressively kill them, or a disease that they can't recover fast enough from.
Is there a distinction between megalodon and maybe like a great white?
I think the bone formation is actually different in megalodon versus great white. Yeah, I think great whites do have a limit of size and form. Yeah. Okay. And Kat the Humanist, actually, really, really likable person, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I got another one from Kat the Humanist. How many Jesuses are there and why? And then I'm going to go with one more question. And I know, Mark, you have some questions too, don't you?
A few, yeah.
Okay. So let's start with Kat here. How many Jesuses are there and why?
Although there's only one per Earth, there's been multiple Earths according to the story. We get expressions like reincarnation, etc., like this to try to express this in our minds. If you read the description of the 24 elders, it's exactly the promises to the Christ. So I can at least in that story say I believe there's been at least 23 other Earths. Each got their own hero, a job called Christ.
All right. Oh, and we may, in our midst even, have one of those Christs right before us right now. So I've got one last question, and then I'm gonna hand it out to everybody else. So I've got a question here from GeoSam, and I think this is probably going to be the toughest one to answer all night. So prepare yourself. Are the rumors of a pending legal battle between Richard and Richard's beard true?
Although Richard's beard is its own intellect, and I have no control over the intellect of others, I think we've recently made amends, and the beard has decided that it's okay if I color it, so long as I accept it has dandruff.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I suppose there may or may not be some copyright battles between the two of you with all these ideas.
We're going to work that out. We're not in court yet. We're still talking.
Well, hey, at least it's fairly amicable at this point. Nobody has to get the old snipperoo or anything. So,
I'm sorry. Did you just say cut the beard?
No. Just snipperoo.
You are a murderous, insane.
You can't talk about that, Steve.
I just told you it has its own intellect. I just told you that.
Well, once he found out it had intellect, he wanted to kill it.
It may not necessarily be moral, but it may be justifiable.
It might be.
Well, thanks for stopping by the Murder Shed, where answers get questioned.
Hey. Hey, Mark.
What's up?
What's your view on astrology?
I'm actually very fascinated by it, and I think that maybe our contemporary view of it or the commercial view is pretty off, right? But I do think there's something to be said about understanding the stars and understanding how the Earth works and understanding how things pass over time. And so I was actually really fascinated when he started talking about this, because one of my major questions is, I do agree that these prophecies of the stars do have something to them. My curiosity is, like, how were these things divined so many thousands of years ago? And we have seen some of those things come true, as you just described with the the comet that blocks out the three stars. How were they able to know so far ahead of time? Do they have such a grand wisdom about how the cosmos worked? Or was there a way for them to perceive time ahead of schedule?
I don't think they perceived time ahead of schedule. I don't think they prayed even that well. I don't think they were inspired to write it and write it perfectly, but they themselves actually did not put pen to paper. Angels having flesh would be perfectly capable of doing it themselves and just handing it over. And that's the story. And in Judaism, they don't have a story of how they got the original works. And neither does Christianity, by the way, just claims of authorship. And that's all that they have. But in most religions around the world, they say it was passed down via messenger. A living being came and showed them or told them or handed them paper or costume or whatever the situation was at the time. As far as how can I say that these things could be valid when it sounds like I'm talking about astrology more than astronomy? And don't Christians say that astrology is a false religion? Well, actually, the Bible in the first few pages says, I will use the stars as signs and symbols of days and seasons. So it itself is claiming astrology could be valid in certain ways. And that's not even accounting for the symbology of the 12 blessings or on the 12 sons of Israel being exactly the zodiac. That's something worth noticing. But I would like to tell you the story of David and Goliath in astrology, if you would hear it.
Yes.
Hey, if you don't mind me cutting in real quick, Richard, I just wanted to. I know.
I just wanted to say, teasing me here.
If anybody hasn't subscribed yet to Richard's channel, it's Richard Madsen, and I really, really recommend checking it out because there's some really great discussions on there, including the one that he's about to get into right now.
I got James Cameron on the other line. We're producing this. Okay. This is gonna be the show. Like, we're gonna get this movie going. I honestly, like, if I was a billionaire of some sort, like your Jeff Bezos, I would go to Richard and say, here's $10 million. Go make this movie because I want to see it. And I would love to see what somebody who isn't part of the system of Hollywood would make with that level of quality in tools. You know what I mean?
That would be a blast. It really would.
Jeff and his hair are in a legal battle together. Yeah, I want to hear about Goliath.
We'll start the GoFundMe.
Right on. Okay, Goliath. The story of David and Goliath as astrology. Do you understand that in astrology, one of the most fundamental stories, that the planet Jupiter is the planet of enlightenment, but only if it's in Mercury's house and Mercury in retrograde? You do know that story. Good for you. Okay, so I'd like to put into your head the idea that David is the planet Mercury and Goliath is the planet Jupiter. And David runs to the giant and kills the giant, taking most of his brass armor into David's tent, which is in Bethlehem. Now, those are 3 Hebrew words which mean house of bread. And if you like astrology at all, you recognize the phrase house of bread. It's the long name of the constellation Virgo. So we have a location for the destruction of the planet Jupiter. Now, here's the interesting part. Turns out the planet Jupiter is a brown dwarf or unrealized star, chemically speaking. Not that it emits its own light right now. It doesn't. But it does definitely have the possibility of being ignited if the right series happened. So here we have the planet of enlightenment. Yes, that's Virgo. Very good. Wow, you found that quick. So we have the planet of enlightenment in Virgo. As the planets continue to rotate in a counterclockwise direction from astronomical north, the next constellation is Libra, which is the judge. So if Jupiter were realized on as a short-term star, what you would literally have is the giant slain in Virgo, and then you would have the brightest star in the sky in the east. What do you think of that?
My question would be, we understand that all the stars are just kind of out there. and then the people who are naming them certain things, how do they attain the knowledge that, right, we got Virgo and Libra, how do they attain the knowledge that this is Virgo and this is Libra, and that it's not a giant game of connect the dots?
If you look into the Hebrew language, the word made or create can have multiple meanings. I can say that I made a table, but I didn't make the wood that I made the table out of. And the word create and made in the Bible often means to organize or to identify, not to create ex nihilo without materials. I believe that in the line, and I made the stars also, which actually is a very ham-handed line. Oh yeah, and by the way, I made the stars, is actually saying I pointed out the constellations.
So how did human beings on Earth attain that knowledge?
He pointed out the constellations. Sent a
Who
messenger, the messenger spoke.
Do you think that of the ancient people that we know of that were advanced, so like Egyptians, Mayans, Incas, which one of them do you think had the best knowledge of the way the stars and all this stuff worked? Like, what is the same relation to like why the Mayans had such great calendars and Aztecs had such great knowledge?
Well, you know, you're asking me to speak to my personal opinion from outside of the text and stories, and I would, and I have no problem with that. I just want to say that first.
Sure.
Perhaps some of the best societies on astronomy were exactly whom you've named, and actually Iraq, the Arabian area, who ended up naming more bright stellar objects than any other civilization, actually. They were quite keen on the idea of mapping stars. As far as a working calendar is concerned, since our year is 365.250138888 days long, what they did was every 29 years they added 3 days, and it worked out quite well. And why our power plants speed up our hertz just a little bit for a little amount of time, keeping your wall clock straight, but grandpa's watch becomes wrong based on 365 days.
But what do you think? What do you think? Like so when you look at the Aztecs or the Mayans, as far as the knowledge that they had of where they were, and I would say kind of their place in the universe, like they had a very good connection with.
They did
with that. Yeah. So like, where were they getting that from? Like, do you think that they were given a text like the Bible that they were using that got some of this information from like angels or something like that?
It seems to me that as far as I can tell, and it's hard to tell, it's really hard. And I'm going off of, you know, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants when I say this, and I don't really know. It seems that as soon as a society got big enough to sit down for 3 hours a day, they got a religion.
Sure.
So as soon as they were big enough and cooperative enough, that's when they were told these stories or made up these stories, depending on how you look at it. Personally, I believe it was given the stories.
One of the biggest tragedies that I am aware of in human history is going to be like the library in Alexandria and the ancient cultures in South America. Like the fact that those libraries, we will never be able to read what they knew or see their knowledge because people just decided that they were evil and they were going to burn their shit. Like that is like some of the biggest tragedies I think that we have as a human race. That loss of knowledge.
Speaking of that word, since I thought it was going to come up, can you tell me, would you please finish this sentence for me? You are a member of the human
condition.
Oh,
Murder shed.
species.
Race.
The words race and species are interchangeable. There is no black race. There is no white race.
Correct.
The word racist is
Agreed.
racist. It is offensive. That, you know, there is no specialty school for surgeons to go and work on Chinese folks.
That's a really, I like that analogy. That's a really good kind of shutdown on that whole idea.
It's amazing too, like not only just humans, you know, what we have in common, but also other animals. Like you look at the biology of, you know, what a veterinarian does and what a human does. And it's not like what you would expect to be night and day. You know, there's very similar.
It's not night and day. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously certain things that are different, you know, but a lot of the medications, a lot of the ways they treat stuff, and a lot of the knowledge that they have on how to treat humans comes from animals and vice versa.
True.
I've got another question. Just I feel like we're at a place where I can maybe interject with a new kind of line of thought. I wanted to ask Richard, do you have any like behaviors that are associated with your belief that God is like the ideals that ancient beings passed down? Like what are the kind of behaviors that we ought to exhibit? What would a person need to do? And I don't know, we didn't get to this. Do you believe that there is a heaven or a hell? And how do we avoid hell and get into heaven? What are the certain behaviors that we have to exhibit or beliefs that we have to have?
Wow, there's a bunch of Christian assumptions. I'm not trying to insult you.
No.
There are so
I
many
it.
Christian assumptions in that.
Yeah.
Okay. Fundamentally,
well, since you don't avoid the word Christian, and so
right.
I want to make sure that we parse out. And this is this is an opportunity for you to separate yourself from those common assumptions.
Oh my gosh, I do that every day. Yes. All right. So the fundamental belief that a Christian, although could never fulfill the Bible, it is an instruction manual for them, is insanity.
Okay.
But instructions are written for the capable, the apt student, which means it's for the Christ. But the instructions are then for the hero of the story, not the practitioner. In other words, the promises are not for the practitioner. The demands are not for the practitioner. The commands are not for the practitioner. None of it. All right. Which is why they're extended grace, because they could never be the hero. And if they could be, it wouldn't be special now, would it? Okay.
Oh, wow.
So knowing all that, they can try and they will fail, and they'll tell you they'll fail. But the only one who ever succeeds is the hero. The instructions are for the hero. So there's no need for us to assume, and I'll get to the rest of it. Hold on. You had 4 questions there. There's no need to assume that demands are being put on you. There is no set of acts you're being asked to do. The only thing the general populace is asked to do is to keep holy the Sabbath, which means don't forget I'm coming back for you. That's it. Just remember that. And we haven't forgotten it. You may not believe it, but we haven't forgotten it. Okay. As to heaven, the reality, and hell, the reality, if I asked you to tell me what the outside of love looked like, or perhaps indifference, what's the outside of indifference look like? You can't have an answer that's realistic. You can only tell me how you feel about it. But there's a description of the outside of heaven: coloration, shape, decorations, number of wings on certain parts of it. It's all there. It's describing a very physical thing. Now, it doesn't describe the outside of hell. I'm okay with that. But if a intelligent animal manipulated DNA, it has physicality. So there you go.
Well, and I guess the only question, I guess the root of the question I'm asking is, if I were to subscribe to your view of reality,
sure,
what kind of behaviors would I be expected to exhibit?
You're not expected. The hero has expectations.
Okay, then, so would I be able to behave as I am now as an atheist?
Yes, and you're doing just fine at it, which is perfect.
Okay, so then really there's no reason anybody, well, let me ask this. Is there any reason why anybody should subscribe to your view of reality?
I can't see any reason to.
Okay.
Except for I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
and I have as much respect for you as I can for any kind of animal, and that's why I really do want to listen, and I really do want to honestly answer you.
Well, I appreciate it because it helps me understand a new view of the world that maybe I haven't considered. So in that sense, it's enlightening to me. And I'll let the other guys jump in.
I even love Murder Shed Steve, believe it or not.
I love you too, man. I have a quick question for you in regards to that line of questioning. So do you believe, what are your thoughts on morality then? Like, do you believe that it's objective, subjective, or where do you draw your moral compass from?
I believe the line, I know every hair on your head, means you're one singular, the Christ. He has demands made of him. He has a script to follow. He's got things he must do. Everyone else, well, it's up in the air. So
there would be like no moral code for the layman.
There is no. There is no prescribed, there is no demand. The command is actually saying things that will be in heaven, and describing, not prescribing, things we are and are not capable of doing. It's not a moral code at all.
Okay. Do you think it's possible that morality may live outside of God, and it could even potentially be a subjective thing that we invented?
Well, obviously, right now it's subjective and we invent it, and that's fine. It's the best that we can do, and we're getting better at it, I think, by the way. But if we objectively knew what the human animal is, we could make prescriptions that were objective. We just don't know what that is yet.
Like maybe a subjective goal, but there's an objective way to get there.
No, there would be an objective goal if we fully understood the human animal.
Sure.
Okay.
I actually believe in personal. Well, so I've been studying morality pretty hard lately, and I'm kind of into objective morality.
Sure.
Based on basically impositions of will. That's kind of the one that I like right now. Although I'm not. Have you heard of Snake Was Right? I'm going to check that out.
Snake was right. He's an atheist. He's a thinker. He's very young, but he's brilliant. And I'd love to hear your opinion on it.
Sure. I will write that down.
Mark is dying. He has raised his hand 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Well, I want to go back a little bit to what you said about the Bible or these religious scriptures being instructions for the Christ, as I am one of the self-proclaimed, as they all have said. So you say this is a book that's an instruction manual for that person. Now, I don't know your view on this. Some people believe that it'll be a divine incarnation, where some people believe that that person will be born amongst the human population. So that the one question I have is, how do you think the Christ will present itself or manifest in the world? And secondly, this idea of understanding the human animal, is it the Christ's job to completely understand the human animal and then manifest that objective set of laws for the human race?
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm going to answer the second one first. There's nothing within the stories of us living here forever, so there'd be no point in creating a set of objective morals for people to standardize. Okay. Is the Christ born? And so you're saying, is a God created? And Christians would freak out. But yes, by definition, to be begotten means to be born of. On the day of baptism by John, he is then declared, which means he wasn't declared before that. Okay, so predestined by God in spirit, yes. Starting to perform it before that, no. Adopted that very day.
Still sort of like divined in the back end, but built and developed in the human world.
Yeah, absolutely. Born of a normal woman by a normal man, but spiritually designed to perform a set of functions.
And so what would you say would be the thing that separates this person, like fundamentally, brain chemistry, like their deep unending philosophy? We had this debate in my Discord just today about the difference between if you're ultimately a selfish person, or ultimately a person who honors objective good, like would sacrifice themselves for the greater good as opposed to sacrificing others for their own selfish gain. Would that be the difference you'd say, or is there more to it?
I think anyone who knew the truth of God and the truth of what a human being is would make that sacrifice. Anybody would. If you knew that, you would.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Like you couldn't say no.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're running into the hour-and-a-half mark.
Wow.
Do we need to wrap? What do you guys got?
Mark,
I want to thank you for coming on too. That was a nice little surprise.
It was nice to be. I missed you guys.
I see a lot of parallels between you and Richard, and it's weird. Like, you're both unique, but I see some similarities, and I don't know how to.
I'll tell you what, we should do a show then.
Yet.
I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to.
Yeah. I think I want to see more of Mark and Richard, having a conversation, because I think there's something that that I need to extract from.
I
it
think
I
that we
haven't
should
gotten
start a whole segment where we bring people together like this and call it the Love Connection segment.
Oh yeah. At the end, we actually get married.
yet. Yeah, for 90
then
days,
divorce.
and then we see how it goes. And then divorce.
Love Connection.
Oh,
He's got his belt out again. Here we go.
Mark, it doesn't matter what your name is.
Listen,
You're not the mark of legend. You're the mark of nothing.
you're lucky we're like, I don't know how many miles apart. I'd stone cold stun you right now.
What I want to make sure that we all recognize that this is Lila. She is the girl who is the advanced species, which brought us all about.
That makes
Look
sense.
at that beautiful eyes.
So we went from talking to shit to Ben petting his dog. So that was great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Nailed it, Ben.
She came up and walked in my room. What am I supposed to do? Just ignore her? Come on.
No, but, Mark, I see you growing the beard in, bro. It looks good. Looks good.
Yeah. I'm deciding to let it fill out. I've been told by a lot of people it's looking good on me. I've never loved it, but everyone says it looks great, so I'm giving it a shot. I'm taking their word for it.
Hey, Richard, correct me if I'm wrong, but a man's honor is his beard, right?
Glory. Yeah.
Glory. I'm sorry, glory. Yes.
Yeah.
I believe I
So-
heard that from you. So,
A
Mark, you
woman,
got
her
some catching
hair,
up to
a
do.
man, his beard. Yeah.
Correct.
So Ben and Jeff are headed down the right path then, is what I'm hearing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
take your hat off, Oz.
Oh.
He has no woman's glory. He's more of a man than you.
Oh.
Ooh. Richard throwing shade on Jeff.
It's a little bit of a hairy subject.
Just funny. I'm just funny.
Nice one, Ben.
Hey, Mark, good to see you on again, man. Seriously.
Good to see you too, man.
I got back from dinner and I was like, oh, Mark's on there. I told Pasta, I was like, let me jump in there. I'm going to jump in there with the belt. I'm going to jump in there with the belt.
You're still supposed to mail that belt to me, by the way.
For what? You lost.
Now I ran a gauntlet. I think I did pretty,
Yeah, Mark,
freaking good.
You got to win first. You got to earn that belt.
You don't think I got one win out of all those? Shoot, you got to
Give us a miracle, homie. Let's see it.
I'm working on it. But what I tell you, the miracles are the least important part. It's
You know
the
what?
wisdom bestowed upon mankind, which is the most important thing of the Messiah.
That in itself would be a miracle.
Mark,
I've been dropping wisdom on you guys since like day one. What are you talking about?
Mark, if you quit smoking, I might count that as a miracle.
No, he's got to quit cold shoulder.
I got to lose both shoulders. Yeah.
Oz is like, where did that joke come from?
Oz looks like he can't breathe.
I can't. When somebody talks about quitting smoking, I'm like, ooh,
Oh, wait a minute.
ooh. That would take a god.
Oh my gosh.
There it is.
It's such a good look for me. It's hard to give it up. It's less about the nicotine and more about the coolness of it. You know, I feel like I'm in Hollywood or something.
I'll get you one of them packs of
1950s movie.
back in the 80s. You know, they had the candy for kids that was like little cigarettes that was
There
just
you
like
go.
sugar sticks.
Yeah.
You can't sell those now. Like, you know.
Yeah.
I actually might
Wait,
be.
bro.
I actually might be more willing to give credence to Bible scriptures if it was like, well, Jesus rolled up smoking a Marlboro.
Yeah.
And he was sipping on a gin and juice, and then he laid hands on the sick. Like I actually might give it more credence, but that didn't.
Like he rolls the ticker to the side and just starts laying hands. I got this, guys.
Here's
Just a
the
beer on the other side. Yeah.
But see, here's the thing, Oz, that you're missing about Christianity. You can make your own version of the Bible, and then you just call it a translation, and you can create an entire church around this, and it doesn't matter. And
I believe
I was watching some videos earlier. So, and this is not to get into this specific subject, but one of the things I think that I find is a flaw in Christianity is homosexuality and the way that it's handled in the Bible and how it changes over time. And I'm watching these progressive Christians that are talking about all the stuff that was mistranslated that led to homosexuality being put into the Bible incorrectly. And all I can think is like, cool, do that for the rest of the book. Like, you just need to get rid of the book. You know, that's the biggest problem with progressive Christianity is your book. So rewrite it, do what you need to do, and get all the stuff out of it that shouldn't be there.
And Jeff, the book has been the problem the entire time.
Forever. Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
You guys are killing me.
I'm not the man over here.
You guys are killing me. Look. How long have homosexuals been on the earth?
Since
Forever.
As long as we know.
Forever. Do people make terms for things that they see in real life? Of course. There's always been a term in every society for homosexuality. In the ancient Near East, specifically in Judaism, the word that they used was eunuch. You know, a man who's not a man, wink, wink, you know? Okay. They use the word eunuch. And eunuchs need no special exception to be invited to heaven or to ascend to heaven. There's no need for it. However, the 12 apostles ask if a man is in the case of a woman. Okay, let that process. Is it good that he should marry? Eunuchs don't get married, bro. That's kind of the point of being a eunuch. They can't be talking about eunuchs no matter what Christians say about it. But Christ doesn't answer the question. He says, this saying is not for all, but only for those who would receive it. Some eunuchs are born of the womb. That's not true of eunuchs. Is it true of the other case? Yes. Some choose to be. That's not true of eunuchs. They're decided by their parents. They don't choose to be eunuchs. And some are made eunuchs by other eunuchs. This, again, is not true of eunuchs. That's pretty funny. It's not true of eunuchs, but it is true of homosexuality. And I cannot find a bisexual or homosexual who will argue with those as describing homosexuality. And the finishing line, if someone can receive the good news, let them. So you have a decision make. Jesus is a tease who tells people the good news when they can't go to heaven, or you're an idiot. You know what I'm saying?
I have considered the fact that I'm an idiot.
Well,
okay. So Christians should just give it up and actually read it in context.
Yeah, I just think that they need the biggest the people that claim progressive Christianity, to me, is ridiculous. And
that's how I grew up.
Because it seems to be tied to Methodist a lot. It seems to be there because you'll have there's a specific person on TikTok that's a female preacher, and she talks about all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, cool, I'm on board with you. Like, I agree with what you're saying. But that's not what the book that you're using to justify it says. Like completely separate. Okay.
The word slay can include the definitions entertain and clap your hands. Okay? So not by necessity are the Christians reading the correct context. These words are flexible. All right? So what we should be looking for is, like any work of literature, a consistent context that works everywhere. Point me out a church. There ain't one.
I would agree with that. I think that's the biggest problem I have with alleged holy books and alleged religions is the fact that their book, that the method in which the contents of this knowledge has been given to that religion is in stark contrast with their claims. And what I mean by that is, if the God that they claim is all-knowing, all-powerful, and can do all of these things, then he or she should be able to deliver words that are their dire message for salvation in such a way that it cannot be corrupted by the, opinions of man.
Or it was intended for the Christ, the only apt student, and it's perfect for his brain, not yours.
Yep, sure.
I've got one question. What is the criteria? Do you take all books or all literature? And then if not, what is the criteria by which you choose which literature to include within your view?
Okay, if I find context that applies to 99.9% of something, and then it doesn't work for the other 0.01.
Would the Book of Mormon fit that? I'm trying to figure out where
a lot of it. Surprisingly, a lot of it does. I've never read it, but a lot of it does work.
Okay, so the idea that, and I guess that was one of my questions that just.
However, Second Thomas and the Book of Judas don't work. Just for example.
The Gospel of Judas?
Yeah, the book of Judas, the Gospel of Judas, which is not, it has nothing to do with anything.
But I like it.
You can like it. That's fine. It's just a work of fiction. I hope you like Mark Twain. You know?
just like the other 66 books. So here we go.
Well, so actually, Oz, when I say 99%, I mean of the religions around the planet, not just those 65, 66 books. Sorry.
Why are we including the 99% of the religions? Or does it have to be 99% of religious people? And then how do you include like non-religious people?
No, like I said, the intended reader would understand it. It doesn't mean you have to. So the intended reader wears many crowns, as is quoted in the Bible. That is, has many names across the planet, thought of as a prince.
What's an intended reader?
And some of the names of the prince, some of the names of the prince are Thor. One of the names of the prince is Buddha. One of the names of the prince is Hercules, Jesus. All these names just mean one person who will do a certain job.
Where did that come from?
All over the planet.
No, wait. Who decided that all those names were the same person?
In the context I've adopted, it makes them all. Okay, let me just give you an example. In the book of Revelation, Jesus is killed by, but overcomes and kills the 7-headed beast, the beast of Satan, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. Go read Hercules versus the Hydra.
That's why we know it's fiction.
Was that the Marvel?
No, that's why you should know that everyone was told the truth and you call it fiction.
Why?
Whoa.
How did you rule out the possibility that one was based on the other?
No, it's not one was based on the other. Some of these people were separated by geography before they had language. It's not one based on the other. Everyone has the truth.
No, Richard, here's the thing: is you have the reincarnation of Jesus next to you, and he's smoking cigarettes. So I know it's fiction.
Okay, fair enough.
We're done here. Well, we're done.
I fold based on that last statement. Tom Jump. Tom Jump.
Tom Jump told me last time space doesn't exist and epigenetics isn't a real science.
Yeah, but that's because he'll say anything he needs to in the moment, and he's only good at arguing. He does not make sense. He's not consistent between any 5 minutes you pick.
Hey, hey, somebody bring the jump man on. Get the jump man.
Yeah, bring him on.
Bring him on. I got questions for epigenetics with him.
Bring him on.
He will contradict himself every 10 minutes if you work him in those circles.
But
that's why I just don't make claims, and then you can't hold me to anything.
Yeah. To build on Richard's point, what I said in the episodes before is that you have to start looking for these connections, for these metaphors, for these like you have like Buddha going under the Bodhi tree and having to deal with the demons and having to sit still, and you see Jesus Christ going into the desert to be tempted by the devil. You have to start trying to draw these lines and see if that there is some actual fundamental truth that lines all of these stories that aren't meant to be so literal, but to take it as some sort of message or directions for the future or for the right way to be.
And Mark, I think and I'll speak for myself, the other guys can talk. If we have to start searching for truth through metaphors, I'm not going to consider any of that truth if I have to sort through metaphors.
Well, if I'm right about the hero and his position, you don't need to do anything. Okay, you only need to properly assess with logic in the moment the situation you actually see. That's all that's being asked of you.
And Richard, I wasn't on earlier. I heard what that part of the discussion, but I wasn't on camera yet. So I want to make sure that I have clarity on that statement. So you, from what I think either Jeff or Steve asked you when you guys were talking, or no, I think it was Ben. Ben actually asked it. So I can pursue life and act and talk and Jeff, settle down. Pursue life and talk and act and do everything that I want to do as an atheist currently today, and it's still acceptable to the standards of a creator God or whatever the model of God is that you have.
Yeah, I would say so. I think the only instructions are for the hero. He's the only one being given special promises. Everyone else extended grace because of ignorance, because they're not the hero, which makes sense.
Okay, so hey, atheists, we're good.
Yeah, that's what I'm taking away.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, I'm convinced that I mean, unless you're just a special kind of nuts and it's not obvious, then I mean, you adjust your perspective by what you see in reality. If you saw the 7 signs completed in the correct order and they were the right magnitude, and then you met an angel, you'd fold and go, okay, it's real. I get it.
And Richard, I would say, Richard, I know you're 100%, probably even mildly violently going to oppose this assertion, but you're an atheist. You're an atheist. You just have a different level that covers it. Like, we can all do what we want to do. You just have a claim that is piled on top of atheism.
Okay, sure. I'll go with
Sweet.
that.
There we go.
Why not? Christians,
welcome to the
Christians
table.
call me atheist. If atheists want to call me an atheist, that's cool with me.
And everybody,
pagans called the
we're gonna
Christians
welcome
atheist.
You know what I think all of us on the screen would agree to? That labels are stupid.
I agree with that.
And I don't think that an atheist woke up one morning and said, you know what? I'm going to tell everybody I'm an atheist. That's the claim that I need to put it in front of my name and carry it with me everywhere. It was probably a religious folk that said, you don't believe? We got to come up with a way to classify you.
Somebody just quoted it. Was it Ben that quoted it? Who quoted? How did that start?
Well, I was about to say pagans called Christians atheist because they only believe in one God.
That's where it started.
Yeah, hold on.
What was it? What was it? Crap, you guys were talking like. So.
Oh, don't worry. We knew you were there.
So one.
Tom, I just said you're completely inconsistent. You're just great at arguing.
Yeah. Okay. How so? When actual philosophers say I'm perfectly consistent.
Yeah. Well, I don't know those philosophers. I'd like to see the actual names of the philosophers. Could you get that?
I have a clip. I actually have a clip of Josh Rasmussen, the professional philosopher, literally saying that.
Okay, so he just cast a lot of doubt in my mind on himself too.
I think you're being inconsistent now. So what am I?
No,
being
I'm
inconsistent about?
I'm consistently convinced that you're inconsistent in your argumentation, though very good at arguing.
Okay, give an example.
Like when you asked me what's more than matter and energy in the universe, and I said space, and you said space was energy, but space is its own thing and it expands quicker than matter and energy, and so it has to be its own entity, like that. Like when I said epigenetics was a science, and you told me it wasn't a science, like that kind of inconsistency.
What? I'm pretty sure I never said that. So
you did say it. And it's on, you got it on tape.
Study of
tape. What is this? 1983.
Wait, guys. If he can't remember what he said before, I have to erase everything. He hasn't been inconsistent once in his own mind.
Okay, that's not an argument. Still waiting for an example. One, space doesn't exist. Space-time exists. There is no independent kind of space. It's just space-time.
You told me space was energy. You said space didn't exist. It wasn't something. That's what you said. Space
doesn't exist. Space-time exists. Space-time is a thing. Space is not a thing.
Space isn't a thing.
Space-time is a thing. Space is not a thing.
Is part of it space? Is part of space-time space?
No, space-time is one thing. It's not. There's not part of it. It's one thing.
So it's absolutely one thing, inseparable.
Yes, they're not separable things. They're literally the same thing.
Okay, so if something is holding perfectly still and we're at absolute zero, is it enjoying time and space?
Yes, space-time is one thing.
No, it's not, Tom. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. You just don't know physics. Literally, space and time are inseparable.
Okay, if you say so. But if something were absolutely not moving, if something were at zero, it would be not experiencing any time. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
No.
In the movie Back to the Future,
faster.
They separated space
thereby
and time.
Something could be only in space and not in time.
No, that's wrong. So you just don't understand.
They are separable, and you're incorrect on this.
This is just literally anyone in physics. There's like lots of quotes that literally say.
Oh, anyone. Could you name an anyone?
Yes, I have the quotes actually.
You're always saying stuff like anyone and everyone and specialists think.
All right. Hey, everybody. Richard. Hold on. Everybody, hold on. Whoa. Everybody shut it down. Shut it down for a second. All right. So let's do one at a time. That way this all makes sense, right? So Tom and Richard was our guest.
I really only want to do Bible. I'm not escaping him. It's just this is not my topic. It just frustrates me to see someone do what Tom does.
Okay,
that's all I have.
No example.
I'm stopping right there.
Okay.
It's not my thing, Tom. It's not my thing, but you are inconsistent. I just showed you how.
You didn't show anything. You just asserted nothingness because you have your head up your ass. Now, can you give an example?
Oh.
No, it's fine. You can say whatever you want. I'm really done.
So you have given no examples to support your crap?
He just
Okay.
did.
He didn't give any examples.
We just went about space time for like.
Okay. Well, so hold on. So
I'll
if
argue
Richard-
Bible with you any day, Tom.
hold on.
Any day.
Hold on. So if Richard on that topic says he's done, we'll honor that. He's done. Mark has assertions and Tom has assertions on their previous conversation and what they want to do. So Tom, Mark, you guys talk and we'll all listen. And if anybody else jumps in, we'll mute them.
Hold on a sec. The logical consequence of taking these postulates together is that inseparable joining together of the four dimensions here, as you assumed, is independent of space and time. Quote.
Could you say that one more time?
Damn it. I just closed it. It's on the Wikipedia. It's literally just a quote saying that space and time are inseparable.
Whoa! Wikipedia.
Yeah, Wikipedia is great.
It's a great source. I'm sorry.
Yes, it is, because it actually sources the academic journals.
Okay, so
Then go to the academic journal.
No, just use the Wikipedia and then just go there yourself.
Okay, so
That's the point. That's what I'm saying. Go there to the actual academic journal.
So
That's like saying
It's
Google.
fine.
Let Tom and Mark go.
So even if I concede to you that space and time are somehow inseparable and that 0 Kelvin doesn't exist, and there isn't a Planck length time, still space exists as a thing in our universe.
Yeah.
Planets exist within space. You told me there wasn't space and you said space was energy. This is not what you're saying now. You've changed it completely. You told me
No, I
space
think you
was
just didn't understand what I
energy and they were
was saying. So
inseparable.
I don't think you understand what that means.
On the video when we talked, you told me
Space
space
is
and
a
energy
dimension.
is the same thing. That's what you said. Now you're saying something completely different. You're making a completely different argument, which is still questionable because we have 0 degrees Kelvin.
No, so that's
Oh, we
false.
can-
It's just
well, we
ignorant of
can
physics.
respond to
So
evidence.
0 degrees Kelvin does not in any way affect space-time. Like, no, it's just something
Okay,
that
so,
exists in space-time.
within a, let's say we have a small cube.
I don't think
space,
anything can be
and
0 degrees
inside
Kelvin.
it is just one atom, and there's nothing else in it except for that one atom. And you cool it down to 0 degrees Kelvin, and you say nothing else exists besides that box. Nothing's moving. There's no way for you to prove that there is time passing. The passage of time needs change. If Kelvin is at 0, no change occurs. Therefore, time cannot be proven to pass.
You're confusing epistemology and ontology. Your ability to prove
not. I'm just
time
talking about
passing
physics.
doesn't matter to the ontology of time being there. Time and space are inseparable. Literally everyone in physics accepts that. I can put
That still
1,000
doesn't say
quotes.
that space doesn't exist as its own thing.
So
Space doesn't exist as its own thing. Space-time exists.
Okay, then space-time, energy, matter. Everything comes together. It's a cosmic dance. That still doesn't prove your point that you told me that space wasn't real. And
You
space,
didn't understand the argument, so you're
no,
confusing.
I understood the argument completely. It wasn't you trying to be logical. It was you trying to take shots at me.
No, that was irrelevant to my argument. So saying space isn't real
Okay,
means that
let's
space
agree.
on its own
Let's
isn't real.
agree to disagree.
Space-time.
What about epigenetics? What about when you told me
about
epigenetics wasn't a real science?
When did I say that?
that.
Find me the quote where I said that.
It's a video on TART.
Find
I
me
don't
the
know.
quote where I said that.
Ben, wake up.
Who's
Okay.
that? Yeah.
Like I can't find the quote on Wikipedia. It's a video that
No,
we
find me the quote where I said that.
How do I find the quote if it's a video on this page?
Hey,
You go
hey,
to
Tom-
it.
Tom-
and find me where I said that. What?
Tom and Mark, we're pulling up the previous video as we speak, but please continue your argument, and as soon as we have the data, we'll let you know.
So the argument and I don't even know how we got to this conversation because I thought it was supposed to be about God and my beliefs and all that, and somehow we got
You
into
don't believe in God, so there's no point in talking to the God.
Huh?
You don't believe in a God. You're a
I
naturalist.
do too. Well, I don't believe. I know.
You're a naturalist. You don't believe in a God as a conscious entity that exists outside of space-time.
No, I don't. But that's the thing is you mischaracterized me because you didn't ask me enough like good questions to understand my position. You went right into this thing about space, time, and DNA. You didn't ask me who I was and what I believed in. I know there's a God, and I am a theist, absolutely. But I see God differently conceptually, the way Carl Jung saw God, for instance.
No, I deconstructed your entire worldview. It's just garbage. You're just rephrasing words.
Well, could you explain how it's garbage?
I did in the conversation. I don't actually remember anything about it because it was so boring.
I thought it was pretty profound. If you're so dead set on thinking that you proved me wrong, you should have some
Pretty
recollection of it, right?
Not
So-
really. Like everything you said was just naturalism.
Okay, well, how about we just have a
Conscious
new conversation? Let's have a new conversation
Sure.
about it, and you can pick me apart for my belief in God.
Sure. Do you
Oh wait,
believe-
they found it. Here it is.
Excellent.
Roll the tape.
Roll that beautiful beam footage.
Tom know a little bit of what was going on as far as the belief system and everything, and you guys can have a little chat and get to know kind of the premise.
Did you find like the actual clip, or
Yeah, we're watching the whole show.
Of Christ's eighth incarnation of Buddha and the rest.
okay? So you're not asserting that anything exists beyond physics. You're just saying you accept physics and you just call that God.
No, I mean, there's more to it than just physics. There's a lot of different ways to analyze it.
All right, so I understand everything in the universe to be describable by physics, just matter and energy and motion. So that is everything. And so if everything is God, then that would be God.
Well, for instance, there's Newtonian physics, and before, and at the time that Newton was discovering Newtonian physics and building it out, and we were building our worldview based on that, we didn't have relative physics,
Relativity.
which flipped the world on its head. And then, as we got weirder with that, there wasn't quantum physics, and that came, and that flipped everything on its head. Knowledge is constantly transforming and growing. We can never say definitively what the universe is in all characteristics and qualities and aspects as far as matter, energy, and all those things.
Right.
We know of, for instance, we know of 4 fundamental forces, and then we know of 17 subatomic particles, but there's also, they're theorizing there's an 18th one. So we don't know everything that's in the universe.
Right. I never said we knew everything, so I don't know why you're bringing that up. So my question is, do you think there's anything, do you have any evidence or any position that is asserting there is more than what we know via science?
When you say more what we know, I feel like you have to be a little more precise with what you're asking me. Are you asking me about God or asking me about what physicists may discover in the future?
No, I'm asking you, do you believe in anything that is outside of what is supported by science?
Like UFOs, ghosts,
Yeah, anything outside of what is supported by science.
Like I said, I have to think about it. I'm pretty agnostic unless we've been able to nail it down.
That's fair enough. So when you're talking about God, you're only talking about, as far as we know of, just the stuff supported by science. You're just calling that God, plus whatever else happens to be out there.
Well, not just supported by science in the modern interpretation, like alchemy, for instance, the alchemical God. Would it be something we're supporting that science supports? Because one, it hasn't really dived into it, and two, maybe a lot of it's not translatable to science, and that seems to be a lot of the issue when we had these conversations on here. Is a lot of what I believe with this alchemical God doesn't seem translatable in the framework of this atheist empirical method of discovering and understanding.
Can you give me an example?
The 3-hour podcast we had last week.
That does not help me at all.
Well, for instance, these questions we're asking now don't make sense to me because I already told you that I believe God is the culmination of all things in reality. Like reality itself and God are intrinsically intertwined. There's no separation or distinction. So It doesn't exist outside of the realm of reality, but because science isn't complete and never will be, there are things about God that exist outside of what we discovered in science because science is incomplete. The very conceptual understanding of God is that God is the complete all things that exist in reality.
I'm just trying to understand what you mean by God. So if you just mean by God all the stuff that exists that we know about through science, and you don't mean a non-physical mind that can cause things, then all you're doing is labeling the reality, the stuff we can discover, as God, and that's fine. There's not a problem.
Yeah, but I just told you that I didn't think God was just what we discovered in science. I think it's all things we've ever discovered in science.
Right. I agree with you.
Plus a bunch of things we haven't figured out yet.
That's fine by me. So if you're just limited to only accept the stuff that is discovered by science, and you're not positing something else and saying there is this other thing here that we know about, or that you know about, that science doesn't know about, then that's fine. You're just calling all this stuff we've discovered God, and that's okay.
Well,
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in there that would.
It's the example before. Well, that's not the entire video. You said the thing you said about space in the beginning, and then that
was the beginning. They just played it from the beginning.
It's wait, I found it. It's on Wikipedia.
Yep, there it is. So
you just gotta look it up on Wikipedia.
I'll even because I remember. I have a memory, even though you pummeled me so bad that it was not profound in any way. I do remember. You asked me if I believed anything that wasn't proven by science, which was a weird question in and of itself, but I answered. I believe that DNA had more to it and there was more that we need to discover about DNA and how it changes during a lifetime than we have discovered like at this point. To which you tried to get me to prove it after just asking me if I believed anything that was not proved by science yet, which is impossible to prove because you just asked me about something that's unprovable or hasn't been proved yet. So then I said that I think that DNA changes over the course of someone's life based on the experiences they have, which there's decent evidence in epigenetics.
Well, so there's
You said
space,
it wasn't
right, which matter exists, and matter and energy exist inside of.
Yeah, there's no evidence a kind of matter and energy. Space-time is a kind. So do you think there's anything other than just physical stuff, matter, energy, and motion, space-time?
Well, it depends on how you're interpreting that. For instance, human beings' five senses only interpret or only.
Right. So right there, I wasn't saying it was literally matter and energy. It's just the same kind of physical stuff. So it wasn't meant to be literally taken to be. It is literally matter and energy.
literal when you said it.
What?
Like you seem pretty. You completely disagreed with me and said I was wrong, and then said it was the thing you said. That sounds literal to
No,
me.
because I was asking you if you're saying there was anything beyond just physics. So I wanted to know if there's anything outside.
No,
of
you didn't say physics. You said matter and energy, and then I said
right. And so it's this. I was trying to imply just the physical stuff of naturalistic, materialist stuff, which is why I said it's the same matter and energy. That was kind of the point I was trying to make there. Could you not figure that out?
It's not a very good point if matter and energy and space aren't the same things.
No. Clearly, I was trying to ask if you were adding for anything beyond the materialistic worldview of things accepted by science.
And why
which
didn't?
is why I said matter and energy.
And why didn't you say that sentence?
Because space is still in the category of materialistic things accepted by science, which is why I asked if you accept anything outside of science.
That's not what you said. You said, "Is there anything besides
Are
matter?"
you so dumb you can't understand that?
Ooh, nice one.
Okay. Okay. So hold on. So everybody pause. Everybody pause. Mark already knows that I showed up on screen with a belt today. So he already knows that he already knows.
You have that. You have.
Right.
You have stolen that.
He already heard. He already knows. Hold on. Mark's about to get muted because he already knows who the champion is. But what I want to do is let's start with a clean slate. Like, let's do that. So Steve and Jeff and myself, we're going to, and Ben, we're going to mute, and we want to listen. TJUMP, Mark, round 2, fight.
Alrighty.
Okay, so you believe in a God.
I know there's God.
Okay, so what is this God? Is it anything outside of what is accepted by science and physics?
Well, see, this is
yes or no, please.
No, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to answer the way I want to answer. What you're asking is like more of like a epistemological question,
no,
right?
It's not. This is ontology. I'm asking for ontology. Is the ontology of your God any different than any of the ontology accepted by material?
Is this mic on? Can I answer my question or no?
Nope.
So, so I believe that God is all things known and unknown in our reality. So there's some things unknown in our reality that science doesn't know about. And so, yes, it goes beyond what we know about science because we don't know everything about the universe and reality.
Okay, so is this a conscious entity that you're talking about?
It's only a conscious entity because there's conscious creatures in the universe.
That's not what I asked.
No, it is what you asked.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
That's called a straw man. I get to tell you what I mean by my words, not the other way around.
No, it's not a straw man. A straw man is when you take someone's argument and you twist it around and make it what it's not, and then attack that argument. That's not
like telling me what I mean by my words. So my words mean I'm asking you, is this thing, is there a conscious entity that exists that is this thing? Not is it comprised of conscious entities? I don't care about that. I don't care if we're conscious. Obviously we're conscious. Is your God conscious or not? Just the God. Does it have its own consciousness?
You have to understand the precision of words.
No.
You have to understand the precision of words, Tom. You said entity. What do you mean by entity?
Entity is a singular, so it means one thing. Does your God have its own consciousness?
Yes. Now, when you say entity, do you mean one thing local inside of the universe, or am I allowed to say an entity is all things known and unknown in the universe?
That's not an entity. That's many entities. So
okay, that's why I had to answer your question in such a complex way.
No, you didn't. Everyone here understood this. So does your God have a consciousness?
You use the word entity. I don't believe that there is a local conscious entity within the universe that is God. I think all the universe is God, but I also think God is conscious because it exists through us and we are conscious.
So I'll ask again, do you think there is an entity God who has its own consciousness?
Wow, Tom, I don't know what you're doing right now, man.
Entity, a thing or distinct.
Is there anybody else that thinks I'm not making sense right now? I don't think there's an entity local within the universe that's intelligent, that is God. I do think God is all things known and unknown about our reality. And within that reality, which is like God's brain, there is consciousness in human beings, for instance, and therefore God is conscious through the conscious beings that exist in the universe.
Okay, again, not what I asked. So is there an independent entity of consciousness that exists in your God, or is it just all our consciousness? Is there any other consciousnesses other than those of the beings that exist in the universe?
Well, I think there's like this, it's the whole thing is conscious as a result. To what extent, I don't know, but is the sun conscious, Tom?
No.
It's not conscious. How do you know that?
Induction.
Induction of what?
Evidence.
Evidence of what?
Science. This is pretty simple stuff.
So then what
is a result of brains. Suns don't have brains. Suns are not conscious.
So you're saying consciousness is derived from the brain?
As a result of a brain, yes.
And it's only derived from the result of a biological brain.
That's all we have evidence for, yes.
Well, there'd be a lot of scientists that tell you you're wrong because they haven't figured that out yet.
No, all the scientists in every academic field agree that the brain is purely physical. We'll just pull up quotes. Julian Mussolino, cognitive scientist.
There's tons of disagreement in the community, the scientific community. Yes, there is. They're having a giant debate right now where consciousness arrives from. Not to mention, no scientist has said that consciousness can only arrive from a brain like ours in our side of our skull.
No, that's the only thing we have reason to believe. So again, the consensus
comes from
the brain.
The sun was conscious, and you said no, definitely not. Now you're saying that's all we know. So you can't make an assertion on whether the sun is.
No, I can totally do that. That's called fallibilism. You can make a justified conclusion about totalities based off of induction. That's perfectly fine.
Why don't you use English? So what you're saying is,
I can conclude that the sun is going to come up tomorrow, even though I don't have to be absolutely certain for it. So I can conclude the sun isn't conscious, even though I don't need to be absolutely certain for it, because we have no evidence to.
You're saying that you can guarantee the sun comes up tomorrow?
No, I can say I can conclude the sun comes up tomorrow based off of induction without being certain. So I can claim to know something without absolute certainty.
That's not. No, you can't know if the sun is going to come up tomorrow.
Yes, you can. It's literally fallible.
The sun could explode right now, and it's not coming up tomorrow.
So you can know things without absolute certainty. You don't need absolute certainty. Basic philosophy called fallibilism. Everyone in science and philosophy accepts that. Just Google fallibilism, consensus position.
Okay, so getting out of the weeds here, you're saying that consciousness can only arrive from the 4 pounds of matter inside of our heads, and there's no other way for consciousness to arrive in the universe?
That is the conclusion. We need a biological brain of some kind to produce consciousness.
But that's not true.
That is the evidence. So yeah, that's true.
No,
you have some other evidence.
You yourself, Tom Jump, is concluding that consciousness can only arrive from a brain. You're not agreeing with the scientific community, nor are they agreeing with you, that no scientist in their right mind would say that most definitely consciousness has to come from a brain.
In fact, the overwhelming majority of people in my line of work are what's called materialists or physicalists. Dr. Julian Mussolino, cognitive scientist. There's a number of lines of reasoning that all converge on the same conclusion. That's what philosophers of science call a consilience of evidence. That's what supports strong conclusions like evolution, like climate change. So in the case of evolution, you have fossil record and molecular biology, comparative anatomy, and all these things point to the same direction, likewise for the soul. As far as scientists are concerned, neuroscientists, psychologists, cognitive scientists, there is almost no support for dualism. Philip Goff, a philosopher, has made a brave foray into panpsychism, but it's ridiculed in most quarters. I think he's like a chess player who refuses to concede even when he's down to a lone king and a pawn against several powerful pieces. Are you going to make this off the board? That's Dan Dennett. So yes, this is the consensus that no, there is no so.
It's not a consensus because you pulled one quote from one scientist.
That's multiple quotes from multiple scientists, and they are quoting this. They are saying most people in this field, in fact, the overwhelming majority, most people in neuroscientists, psychologists, cognitive scientists, these are quoting the majority. The majority of people in these fields, and the people in the field acknowledge, know that all of the only evidence exists is that consciousness exists in a mind. So
a mind isn't a brain, Tom. A mind is
brain. A brain and mind are synonymous in the field. They're literally synonymous in the field.
So a tree is not conscious at all.
No, a tree is not conscious at all.
What's your definition of consciousness?
Qualia experience.
Quality of you don't think a tree is having an experience?
Qualia. No, the tree does not have experience.
How do you know that?
I don't need to know it with absolute certainty, so I can.
You can assume there's fairies in the forest, Tom.
I didn't assume anything. This is based off induction. So again, you haven't answered my question.
So what you've done is you become completely nebulous, and I could never pin you down to anything because all you can keep on saying is, well, I conclude it based on my own inductive reasoning. So I could say fairies with the same argument. I could say there's fairies in the forest.
No, you couldn't. You'd have to be an idiot to try and make that conclusion. So my conclusion is based on science, based on consensus.
And I have inductive reasoning.
No,
that trees aren't conscious.
Where's the inductive reasoning that fairies are in the forest?
Where's the inductive reasoning that trees aren't conscious?
Because all of our evidence.
I'm not talking about human consciousness, Tom.
Yes, we have inductive reasoning that trees are not conscious.
Any type of consciousness. Any type of consciousness. Yes. Because consciousness obviously isn't one definitive thing. Human beings' consciousness is not the only consciousness. Dogs are conscious.
Yep, they have brains.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying
brains are what produce consciousness.
When did consciousness arise? At the point of a brain, or is it was it
some level of a brain?
So nervous system, like an insect. So like an insect without a brain. It only has a basic nervous system that doesn't have any consciousness.
So again, this is just basic science. You can just go read the consensus.
I'm asking
I don't care. You haven't answered my question.
Because
you haven't answered my question. Shut up.
I've got you pinned down to that couch. Now you're telling me to shut up because you're angry.
Shut up, Mark. And you still need to answer my question, Mark.
I already did.
You haven't answered any of Mark. You haven't at all.
I have. I answered both.
No, you haven't, Mark.
I
have asked.
You did.
You believe in a God. Do you believe this God has its own independent conscious entity, a singular conscious entity, independent of any of the particular things in it?
I think the universe is conscious, Tom. And I think that the universe, all things known and unknown in the universe, is God. So yes, I guess I do believe
it have a singular entity consciousness, a singular kind of personality and ideas, independent of its parts.
No, I don't agree with that.
So the only consciousness that exists are the things that exist inside of it, not as a whole.
There might be a whole consciousness, Tom. That's what I'm trying to talk to you about.
Might be. I'm not asking what might be. I'm asking what you believe.
Has a level of consciousness. Maybe each photon has a level of consciousness, and that consciousness is unified.
I don't care what might be. I'm asking you what you believe.
I can't prove that with. I believe. And listen, I believe, and I'm taking a leap to say that I believe that the entire universe has a consciousness to it. Absolutely. And there's nothing I can do to prove that. That goes beyond anything we can prove with science. But I do believe that there's a level of consciousness in insects, in trees, in suns, in planets. We don't understand it because it may be even more prolific than our consciousness, the way an ant can't understand that we are conscious.
Okay, so that's called panpsychism, and
No, it's not called anything, Tom. You're trying to label me, and you can't label me because I don't have a label. I haven't read panpsychism, so I wouldn't be a panpsychist or whatever the heck you just said because I've never subscribed to their ideology. I'm my own person, and you shouldn't try to label me based on 3 or 4 things I said I believe because there's a million other things I believe, and you need to have a more developed conversation with me before you try to tell me what I am.
Panpsychism is the view that all things have a mind or a mind-like quality.
Great. That doesn't make me a panpsychist.
That's literally what you just said. You just said the universe
Tom, there's more. There's like 100 different belief systems that believe that. Buddhist.
They're all called panpsychism.
I mean, well, you can call it whatever you want. They make an
It's just the definition of the word. You being ignorant of the term doesn't mean you're not one. So yes, you are a panpsychist. You believe consciousness is part of the universe. So you just don't be ignorant of the word.
No, I'm not, because you haven't even listed all the things that this panpsychist believes. I don't care about your label.
That is literally all they believe.
Hey, Tom, I don't know what you're
all things have mind or a mind-like quality. That is it. That is what the word means.
With labeling what I am, it doesn't matter anyway. Okay, you've identified. I'm a buffalo. Whatever you want to call me. Does that change anything? What does that change?
No, it's just
okay. Then why do you
what your position is so I can understand it? That's literally what it means. That's why you give labels to things so you can understand it. Stop being ignorant.
No. I'm an alchemist. How about that? That's what I actually am.
That doesn't help me understand your position. So telling me the label doesn't help. That's the point of labels. Labels help you identify things.
That's because you're ignorant of the term, Tom.
No, because I know what alchemy is, and trying to turn metals into gold doesn't tell me anything about.
See, and that's the thing. You have no idea what alchemy is.
Yeah, I know exactly what alchemy is. Newton was an alchemist.
You don't know what an alchemist is because you think that literal lead turned into gold, which just shows your ignorance on what it actually is.
No, I never said that. You're a fool. So alchemy is the attempt to do that.
No, it's not, Tom.
Yes, it is. That's literally what most alchemists try to do. That's one of the things they do.
Not the attempt to turn actual lead into gold. That's what people that misinterpreted alchemy think, but that's not what actual alchemy is about. It's about turning the lead mind into the gold mind. It's about it's about.
Oh my God, that's the same thing. You're such an idiot. Oh,
no, it isn't. You just said lead, metal, gold, metal. Metal is a different thing than your actual mind. Those are two completely different things.
lead.
Can you ever admit when you're wrong about anything?
Yeah, I admit I'm wrong all the time with the actual philosophers who actually know what they're talking about. You're just completely full of shit.
I am.
Yes.
So you're saying that alchemy isn't the practice of lead into gold being a metaphor for transcending mentally and becoming a higher person?
No, it was a literal thing. There were literally people trying to turn actual physical lead into actual physical gold.
There was people that were trying to do that, but that doesn't make alchemy what it is. Those people were making a mistake. They didn't know what they were doing. Alchemy is
a medieval forerunner to chemistry based on the transformation of matter.
Are you going to listen to someone who's been an alchemist for 10 years?
You're a fool. You're a nothing. You have no education.
Nothing.
So I'm going to go with the actual experts who actually
getting all angry and resorting to name calling. It shows.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the academics who actually understand the thing in the field.
Why don't you actually look at the actual alchemists that practice for 1,000 years? You're going to disregard all that for some new person, some modern interpretation. They don't got a clue.
I'm going to go with the actual people who know the history behind it and not the fools. So if you have a new word for it,
you're telling me because I read like 10 books on it, I've been studying it for 10 years, I'm somehow a fool completely about alchemy.
Yes, if you made up a new term for it, that's a different kind of thing, and you're trying to use it to define the thing that you actually know.
If you want to type in alchemy metaphor lead gold meaning the mind, if you type that in, you're going to find tons.
Okay, and I just typed in alchemy, and I went to the academic journals, and the alchemy I just literally read it off to you. It's the idea of transforming materials. Alchemists attempted to purify, mature, and perfect certain materials. Common names were chrysophia, and the transformation of base metals like lead into noble metals like gold. Holy shit! Academic journals. What? I don't know. That. Harry Michael, 2018, Alchemy in Craig, Edward, Rutler, Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Oh my God!
By your ignorance, that you would sit here and not listen.
Quote experts. Quoting experts is showing ignorance. You're a fool. You are a complete fool.
Tom, I can show you tons of real experts of alchemy who know that alchemy isn't about turning lead into gold. It's about transforming who we are and transcending our lead state, a metaphor, to our golden state as a human being. That is what alchemy is about. That's what all the books are written about. If you actually read any of the books, which I've read many of them, you would see that they were never telling you to get a piece of lead and turn it into gold. They were talking about transcending your own consciousness. If you read any books on it, you'd know that.
History of alchemy. Hellenistic Egypt, India, Islamic world, East Asia, medieval Europe, Renaissance, later modern period, West women in alchemy. So yes, this is all the history of alchemy. They're all doing the same thing. Bye-bye. Much better.
Thomas, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, wow.
Hey,
if he wants to make up new words and completely go against how the words are used in academia, that's fine. If he admitted it, I'd be okay with that, but it's weird. They still couldn't find anything about the epigenetics not being a science thing. Like, I remember he said that epigenetics, there was some evidence of epigenetics that our minds could do things. Like, that's not true. I said that wasn't science, but I never said epigenetics wasn't a science. And the space-time thing, like in the quote you showed, was specifically just, I was asking him about the stuff materialism accepts, and I referred to that as matter and energy and motion, which would include space-time as the materialistic stuff. So saying space-time exists wouldn't help his position at all there. So he's just full of crap. Like, wow.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was just, and I was doing my Googling while you guys were talking, and I have to agree with Jump, as most of what TJUMP presented was what studies provided. If you just do a simple Google search. So yeah, Tom, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, happy to be here. That is a cool background. Where did you get that? I like that picture of New York, Chicago.
Yep. Actually, so I'm in the furniture business. This is at one of my stores that I bought that from. And then I got the little table, the sofa table, and put my books that I'm currently reading or have read behind me. And I appreciate that, because I wanted, Paz and I wanted a more natural look than just the green screen. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's nice. What are the books you got?
What's that?
What are the books you got?
Oh, there's several there, but the two I'm focusing on right now it's my third time through deconversion from Seth Andrews, and then the one that I always struggle to remember the name of it is by Tim Sledge. It's called Goodbye Jesus. He was an evangelical pastor that had some really crazy experiences and then walked away from the faith, is now an atheist. And it's my first time, and I'm going slow through that one because there's a lot to take in. Those are the two I'm reading right now, but there's a lot on the supernatural regarding heaven and hell, because as I was going through my deconversion process, I actually had to go through therapy to talk about hell and that hell's not real and all that. So there's a lot of those books there.
Yeah, I can understand that. Have you ever thought about inviting Seth Andrews or that guy on your show?
Yep. So I'm actually in conversations with Seth to come on the show, to have that conversation. And I did just within the last week or so, now that I got further along in the book, messaged that guy to see if he would want to come on and do an interview, now that we've kind of transitioned into not just the atheist-theist conversation, but doing interviews with those that have deconverted. I'd love to have that conversation with him.
Yeah, that's cool. I met Seth. He came here for a few of the atheist events. He's a really nice guy. He'd be nice to see on your show.
Yeah, I did have the privilege of being on the Empathetic Atheist show when he was there, and Justin allowed me to be the co-host, and I got to ask him several questions. And Seth cool as hell. Seth is cool as hell, and I can't wait to have him come on the TART show. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, and you're a good interviewer too. Like, I'm really bad at interviews. I hate doing them, but you're a lot better at it than I am. I like the way you phrase the questions and guide the conversation. So it'll be fun. Well, and if I'm good at interviewing, you're even better at debating. You're the boss. You're the boss. Yeah, got to use those magic words with the alchemy and stuff. As long as you can make up your own words, right? Yep. All right, guys. I'm gonna get off. I gotta go to bed. Real quick, Tom. Before you go, I just want you to know that I'm really, really happy to see you and hear your voice and know that you did not fall victim to the murder shed. I'm really appreciative of that. Yeah, it was just totally fine. I beat the crap out of him. He's a short guy. He's actually 3 feet tall. He's super tiny. Like, he looks big in his pictures, but that's actually like a toy axe, like one of those Barbie axes. It's not. No, but no, Jump. Thank you, man. You're awesome, and thanks for jumping on and having that conversation tonight. And for those that have watched tonight, and even Richard, we appreciate you coming on tonight. And Richard does have a very different philosophy, even theology, than your average Christian. And we appreciate him coming on and discussing that. But Pasta, as usual, killed it with intros and the visuals and everything. We appreciate everybody that's involved. And we'll raw out for the night. It is TART.live. Check us out if you want to be a part of the show. And we'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you.